Thank you for your help earlier on.
Well, actually, it's Sia. Remember what I said about using people's chosen names?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know I'm new in this, and sorry for the slip-up. I hope I get it right.
Well, I see we still got some ground to cover. But not to worry though, Doc.
I think it's very important to recognize our own prejudices as clinicians, especially when dealing with things that we don't understand. And unfortunately, dealing with trans patients is often something that we are poorly equipped to do. And this problem can be traced back to the education that we're given, or more accurately, the education that we're not given in medical schools.
I think as doctors, you do take that oath and you have a responsibility, to whichever patient present to you. So I don't think it is okay or fair to, like, when you are approached by a transgender person to claim ignorance, or say, no, I cannot help you because I do not know.
Remember the Hippocratic Oath, Doctor? Well, just because you don't know everything about your patient's identity, it doesn't mean that you don't have the responsibility to help them. While we're on the topic of what to say and what not to say, there are more respectful ways to speak to trans people, like asking the correct pronouns.
What are pronouns?
Like he, she, him, her. Well, if you're unsure which correct pronoun to use, just ask politely.
And what about people who are non-binary? You said gender is on a spectrum.
Gender-neutral pronouns are nothing new, and many African languages don't even have he or she. It's best for us to be respectful to one another, and when in doubt, just ask politely.
Okay, I get it. Well, let's get started with the checkup. What seems to be the problem lately?
Oof, doctor, I've been getting the worst headaches lately. And aspirin doesn't seem to help.
And are you sure he's not overthinking this gender thing? Maybe it could be a hormone.
I think for many trans people, they may present to healthcare professionals, and sometimes they are looking for specific assistance with their gender identity. So they might be looking for hormone therapy or looking for more information on surgeries or things like that. But often trans people also present to healthcare professionals for different reasons.
Something happens to you and you break your arm, and it's got nothing to do with gender identity, it's got nothing to do with the gender-affirming treatment that you're on, it's got nothing to do with anything, it's just something that happened to your arm, and everyone fixates on the fact that you're trans. So the broken arm is almost ignored at the expense of asking very inappropriate questions around your gender identity and not treating the presenting complaint.
I'm starting to get a feeling that I can't say or ask anything. I am supposed to take care of your medical health, but how will I do it if I cannot even ask about your medical history?
Of course you can ask, as long as you're willing to listen to the answers. Because not all trans people are going to educate you. That's why the doctor-patient relationship is going to be a partnership. But then again, some of us actually have to be our own doctors and nurses because of the violence, the poverty, and the discrimination against us. Even I was nervous to come here because of all the discrimination I've felt before and experienced.
I think it takes listening more than talking. Like I've said, like the patient understands their journey much more than any practitioner can claim, to understand.
We don't know if we're going to be publicly humiliated, if we're going to be dead-named, if we're going to be misgendered, if we're going to become the butt of a joke amongst the clinic staff and the healthcare practitioners, if everyone's going to call the rest of the team to come and take a look at this freaky trans person.
I've had patients that have, told me stories of the experiences they go through, when they, especially in the public health, space. That's where, a lot of patients have reported, some of the ill treatment that they have gotten.
A lot of times, medical practitioners might even damage us themselves by suggesting interventions like conversion therapy, which we know has been condemned by several professional organizations as not just ineffectual, but also unethical and cruel. Sometimes we might outright be denied access to any kind of healthcare, not even just gender-affirming healthcare, but general healthcare.
Here you go. I think this will do the trick. But I'm still worried about treating transgender patients. For the other stuff, I think it's in the domain of specialists.
You can refer patients to specialist endocrinologists for treatment. But in South Africa, we do have general practitioners that assign hormones on an informed consent basis.
I think the move to an informed consent model also attracts the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH's, changing in their versions of standards of care, where previous versions of standards of care have required psychotherapy for a certain period of time before a transgender person can access medical services. And in their current version, their 7th version, psychotherapy is highly recommended. It can be a really helpful process for a person to explore their gender identity or to prepare a person for transitioning or prepare them for some of the stresses with transitioning. But it's highly recommended but not required.
The previous guidelines were quite American orientated in terms of you must be seen by an endocrinologist and you must be seen by a psychiatrist. And we know that worldwide there isn't the same access to care than there may be in America. So the guidelines are more open to a general practitioner who has been trained in gender affirming care can also provide hormones. It doesn't necessarily have to be an endocrinologist.
Transgender people have a higher suicide rate than the general population. We also know that they are more susceptible to substance use, to other mental health conditions, to anxiety, to depression, and to a variety of social ills, unemployment, lack of familial support, discrimination in accessing services. We have established through scientific studies that access to competent, dignified, and safe medical care can change these outcomes.
You see, the patient's got to understand the effects and the risks that are entailed by taking these hormones. And if they do consent, then they're good to go.
I'd love to know what those effects might be. You don't mind if I keep you a little bit longer?
Well, I've still got some time.